Think your DNA controls everything about you? Think again. What if I told you that two identical twins who share the same DNA can age differently, develop different diseases, and even have different personalities? For years, scientists believed that genes, the instructions you inherit from your parents, determines everything about you, from your appearance to your risk of disease. But we now know it's not that simple. Science now shows that your lifestyle, environment, and even emotions can influence your genes. Welcome to the world of epigenetics, where you have more control over your genes than you've ever imagined. To understand epigenetics, let's start with the basics. Every living thing is made of cells, and inside each of your cells is DNA, the instruction manual that tells your body how to grow, function, and repair itself. DNA is made up of sections called genes, which contains these specific instructions for making proteins, the molecules that do nearly everything in your body, from building muscles to fighting off infections. But here's where things get even more surprising. Not all genes are active all the time. When a gene is active, it means it's being expressed or read by the cells to make proteins. Your body decides which genes to turn on and off through a process called gene expression, which controls everything from how your hair grows to how your immune system fights off diseases. So what's the difference between gene expression and epigenetics? Gene expression is the process that determines what genes are active in producing proteins at a given time. Epigenetics is what controls gene expression, deciding which genes get turned on or off based on factors like diet, stress, and lifestyle. Think of it like a piano. Your DNA is the keyboard holding every possible note, but epigenetics is the pianist, choosing which note to play, shaping the music of your body's health, energy, and longevity. Here's where things get even more fascinating. Epigenetic changes happen without altering your DNA sequence. Instead, they work by adding small chemical groups to DNA, like tiny switches that modify how genes behave. These changes can be triggered by things like nutrition, exercise, toxins, and even emotions, making your lifestyle more powerful than you might think. Now let's break this down even further. DNA isn't just floating around in your cells, it's organized and packaged into structures called chromosomes. Each chromosome is like a tightly wrapped bundle of DNA, which helps fit 6 feet of genetic materials inside a single microscopic cell. But how does a gene actually make protein? Genes contains instructions that tells the cells what kind of proteins to make and when. When a gene is turned on, its instructions are read and the protein is made. But if a gene is turned off, the instructions are blocked and the proteins won't be produced. This is why epigenetics is so important. It doesn't change your DNA itself, but it changes how your genes work, influencing things like metabolism, aging, and even your risk for diseases. So, the next time someone tells you that your DNA determines your destiny, tell them about epigenetics because you have more control over your genes than you've ever imagined. Now that we know what epigenetics is, let's look at some real-life examples of how it works. One of the most well-studied epigenetic modification is DNA methylation. This is when a protein called DNA methyltransferase adds methyl groups to certain regions of the DNA. Think of these methyl groups as tiny tags that help control whether a gene is turned on or off, kind of like a traffic light for your genes. Let me explain. Imagine DNA is a long road, and the cars driving on it are the components in the cells that read the genetic information. When the traffic light is green, cars can move freely along the road, just like the cell components can move along the DNA, reading it and keeping the gene turned on. But what if the traffic light turns red and stops the car? That's what DNA methylation does. When the methyl groups attach to certain regions of the DNA, it's like putting up a red light that blocks the cell's component from moving along the DNA and reading the instructions. This means the gene is turned off, so it won't produce the proteins or carry out the functions it normally would. Another well-known epigenetic modification is histone modification. Histones are proteins that help organize and package DNA into chromosomes, which are thread-like structures that carry genetic information from cell to cell. As previously mentioned, if methyl or other tags such as acetyl, phosphate, or ubiquitin were added or removed, it would influence the DNA by controlling how tightly it wraps around the histone. This, in turn, influences gene expression by turning it on or off. Think of it like using a sticky note in a book. The book represents the DNA, while the sticky note represents the histone modification. If you place the sticky note on a page, it might highlight important information, making it easier to read, just like how certain modification can enhance gene expression. On the other hand, a sticky note can cover the text, making it harder to see, similar to modifications that suppress gene expression. But what determines how these modifications occur? Our environment plays a key role in it. While your DNA stays the same, your surroundings influence which genes are active, like a dimmer switch controlling the brightness of a light. This process, called epigenetics, helps determine how gene functions without altering the genetic code itself. One major factor is diet. The food we eat contains nutrients that affects gene activity, either promoting good health or increasing disease risk. Research shows that diet rich in leafy greens, fish, and nuts supports beneficial gene expression, while processed food may contribute to harmful changes. Stress is another key player. Chronic stress can trigger changes in genes related to mood and immunity, making it easier to develop anxiety or other health issues. However, practices like exercise and meditation may help reverse some of these effects. Pollution and toxins also impact our genes. Exposure to harmful chemicals like air pollution and cigarette smoke may disrupt gene functions and increase the risk of chronic diseases such as cancer and heart disease. On the flip side, exercise is a powerful way to encourage healthy gene behavior. Physical activity has been shown to reduce inflammation, strengthen the immune system, and improve long-term health. Even before birth, maternal health plays a role. A mother's diet and stress levels can leave lasting marks on a child's genes, influencing their development and future well-being. While we can't control everything in our environments, small lifestyle changes like eating well, exercising, and managing stress can help our genes function at its best. As we have seen, epigenetics is reshaping the way we think about our health and genetics. While we inherit our DNA, our lifestyle, environment, and emotions can influence how our genes behave, from diet and stress to pollution and exercise. Everyday choices can influence which genes are turned on and off. Small intentional changes, like eating healthy, staying active, and managing stress can help positively shape our gene expression and long-term well-being.